Hi, I'm Lou Rosalia, and this is Crew Call. Did you ever get so lost in your job that the world around you just completely disappears? We're going to talk about that today on Crew Call, and we're also going to talk about just how narcissistic people in the media and entertainment industry are or can be. To help me discuss all these points is my esteemed crew, friends, and media professionals all, Mr. Joe Scacciaferro, Joe, Mr.
Hello.
Frank Scacciaferro,
What's
and
up, Lou?
Scott Glozzi, also known as Gloz. But I'll call him Scott 12 times throughout this thing, guaranteed. So today's two things came to me. I was flipping through the phone and social media and stuff, and I saw this post. And the first one was on the world disappearing when you're doing your job because somebody, photographer, took a picture of a curb cut sewer and three raccoons sitting in it. So again, the person was obviously backing out into the street, trying to get focus and frame and lighting and all this stuff, and they almost got hit by a car. So I thought about focus and what that means to people in the media and entertainment, business front line. And I'm not talking about, lens focus, physical manual focus. I'm talking about the focus it takes to keep things going and in order. So Joe, I want to talk to you about this. What's it like concentrating on the set when it's such a dynamic environment? You got stuff going on everywhere around you. How do you know what to focus on? Where's your head when you're doing all this stuff?
Yeah, yeah. Thank God for ADD.
Yeah.
Uh, you have to focus on a lot of things simultaneously, and it truly is. What was a disability in the real world is a massive asset in our industry.
Interesting.
What I keep my focus on is literally the show, either the vision or what we're supposed to be doing and what we're supposed to access, and then trying to keep all the disciplines lined up and heading into that direction. Um, Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's really, really, really tricky. But that's the gig for me. That I have
Right,
to do that.
right, right. Frank, I remember going to Giants camp up in Albany when they were doing it up there. You guys invited me, and as soon as I got on the field, I had my brother with me. Joe said to me, "You remember what you said, Joe? You said always keep your eye on the ball, guys. Always keep your eye on the ball." And I'm like, "Oh, come on, always keep your eye on the ball." Anyway, the question that I'm leading into is, Frank, you've been shooting field level NFL stuff at games and practice for a long time. How
Yeah.
do you keep your focus on the subject and not the danger that's around you all the time? Balls, players, stuff coming at you.
Um, well, you got to keep your focus on both. I mean,
Yeah.
you have, and like the whole, I mean, Gloss is also a shot on the field, and it's just, you got to, like you just used that example, like keep your eye on the ball. It's like you keep your shot on the ball or on the subject that you're doing, but it's also, you need to have your other eye just kind of aware as well. Not necessarily like focused somewhere, but just aware of any other things coming at you, because it might not be the actual action that might be, the immediate action that you're covering.
Mm-hmm.
It might not be something that's gonna, possibly put you in danger or something like that. Keeping your focus though, I don't know, experience. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you're not going to
sure.
go out there the first time and like, I mean, it's overwhelming. Not even just like other danger that's coming at you, but you got a whole you're on an NFL field. There's a lot going on. There's 80,000 people screaming. There's other cameras that you have to worry about. There's a lot going on, so it is definitely easily distracting if you're not. I mean, and it's just, I think it just comes with experience of being in that situation.
Do you have an example or a story to share with our audience of any time that you lost focus and something happened, perhaps?
I don't know if it's lost focus, but if you're talking about a time when you kind of got into danger, and this actually goes back to like experience, and then it just kind of your instincts more kick in rather than you being aware, or just a combination of all of that. Was, I don't know, 5 years ago, and one of the guys that works with us in FerroCity, Joe Roberts, happened to be interning with us. It was on the sideline. I was in the end zone. There's a whole video of it if we want to possibly include it in here. We're in the end zone. I don't know, 3 feet from the out of bounds line, and somebody, I think it was Phillip Rivers, overthrew whoever his wide receiver was at the time. I think it was something Benjamin, and I'm following the ball, and I see that it's overthrown. And like I said, I open up my other eye. The receiver's like falling, trying to get the ball, and he's about to, like, if he fell, he was going to fall directly into us. So, I mean, this happened like super quick, and I just like kind of tucked my camera down and kind of got into like a small position, and he hurdled both of us. And that was Joe Roberts' first like NFL game. So he kind of, if you see in the video, he kind of freezes like a deer in the middle of the road. And that was just, like I said, it's just kind of instincts that takes over, and then it's whatever. And then after that, there's a little adrenaline rush, and then you go back into the game.
Yeah, that's really funny, because Joe, when we were at camp, you gave me an opportunity to take a picture with my brother. You grabbed the NBC guy with the mic, and they had the NBC flag on it, sports, and you see, I did a fake little interview thing. And as I'm doing that, I turned my back, and wouldn't you know it, something came in and somebody knocked it down and patted it, and we didn't get hit
on a regular basis.
Yeah,
Glaz's lived them. Frank's lived them. I don't think I've had a cameraman ever, myself included. We could spend the rest of this half hour talking about near-death experiences on the field.
Yeah,
and that's just in football.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you just keep moving along. Every sport's that way.
Dude, I made a diving save once. I was waiting for Frank to tell this story in the MLS. Frank and I were shooting, I forget what team it was, but it was like Mexico versus somebody else in MetLife. And
Trinidad.
Yeah, that's right. It got kind of sketchy at the end there, but they were warming up, and they're curving the ball, the soccer balls. Frank's behind the net, so balls are coming
doing
jib,
jib behind the goal, behind the net.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. So Frank's in his camera, and I'm utility, so I'm kind of just making sure. But there's shots coming from everywhere. So Frank can't pay attention. Literally can't see all the soccer balls. So one is kind of coming. This guy all the way top of the key curves his ball, going top corner, and I'm like, that's a little too high. And then I was like, okay, I got to stand up. And then the ball keeps coming closer, and I was like, that's going to hit Frank right in the face or hit his control panel. And I'm not even kidding. Like, my sports instincts kicked in. I made the coolest diving save I've ever made, and Frank turns his head at the end of it. I think you might have just saw my hands coming up, knocking the ball down. I'm like, I still got it, baby.
No, it
still got it.
Because I see in my camera, I'm looking this way, and the net's that way.
Right. Yeah.
And I see in the camera the ball coming. I was like, oh, that's coming right at me. I was like, no, it's like going to hit me in the face. And as I turned, the ball's like there. And I was like, my hands are on the controls. I was like, I can't do anything. This is going to hit me directly in the face. And I just see it at the corner of my eye. He runs under the jib. And like he said, his hands at the last second. I was like...
That night, I got a call from the MLS. And they're like, hey, you want to come play goalie for the Red Bulls? And I'm like, yeah, man.
And the crowd cheers. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Glaz, let's stay with you for a second. I've watched you on Steadicam, and talking about hand-eye coordination or hand-eye coordination.
Same thing.
How difficult is it to keep your focus on the subject when you're doing Steadicam, and also keep your focus on the multitask of all the gear, the harness, and your camera controls? What's that like?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess doing Steadicam, there's a lot that can go wrong with every camera, but there's a lot more elements that I have to kind of pay attention to. But the thing that makes it easier is having a good utility with me. And utility meaning, for people who aren't familiar, is somebody behind me. Number one, if I'm hardline, if I have a cable attached to my camera going to the control room, they're making sure I don't trip. Number one. Number two, they're making sure that I'm never in a dangerous place. Like, I'm not somewhere where someone's going to walk into me. I'm going to hit someone because, I'm carrying a lot of weight on my Steadicam. I could easily injure somebody. Somebody can get hurt. But keeping focus it's kind of like what Frank said. It comes with experience. Once you do it a few times, you know what you need to do. You know where you need to be. You get familiar with the show. You get familiar with your equipment. So I think I've said this before on this show that when you do Steadicam on the floor, you're kind of a director in yourself. You know where you need to go and you get your direction, but sometimes things change and you might see something different. So I'm always focused in my shot. So on Steadicam, you're flying your rig and your monitor's on the bottom, so you're always looking down. But you kind of have to keep one eye up, as you're walking and moving to making sure you're not going anywhere wrong.
Right.
But yeah, to answer your question, it's hard to kind of keep everything, I guess, in front of you, and trying to stay focused on just one thing, because there are multiple things that you have to pay attention to. So yeah, it comes with experience, it comes with learning, it comes with familiarizing yourself with all your equipment. And honestly, like, hats off to utility guys. Like, I've had my ass saved multiple times by utility people, and those guys are the best. And if you have a good one, then you're set.
If you have a bad one, though, things could get as Chris Mers said to us, he refers to it as a Steadicam bodyguard. He doesn't call it a utility.
Yeah, he's right.
That's what he puts on his invoices as well.
Steadicam bodyguard.
Lou, I'm gonna sum this up for everybody who's never been in these environments and what we're all talking about, and you'll relate to it immediately.
Yep.
When you're out on your motorcycle,
Yes.
you suddenly kick into a different thought process.
Yeah.
You're looking peripherally, you're looking down the road, you're looking at the road, you drive very differently than you would drive at any other time. So you have a multiple focus of what's going on around you, so you don't die.
Yeah.
That's literally what these guys do.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. So he simplified it for people who ride motorcycle. Perfect.
Oh, that was hilarious.
I know we have a big following of the of motorcycle.
All right. Go ahead, Lou. We're pretty much running out of time already.
That's the whole GoPro crew. Anyway,
Yeah.
Joe, when you're in a scripted or non-scripted environment in your role as a producer, where's the majority of your focus placed in those situations?
I probably answered it the same way I answered the first question. Is that my focus stays on the mission at hand. It stays on. I have to stay completely aligned to the story or completely aligned to the vision, and I can't deviate from that. We just did a gig the other night. It was a live show. It's a live post-game show. I know we're talking a lot of sports, but this is sports time of year. It's tricky because there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of noise in the control room, and it's mayhem. But you got to go to commercial when you go to commercial. You got to come back. You got to hit an advertiser's bounce. You got to make sure that you're pulling your remotes in. You got to make sure that the director's not killing the executive producer, and they're not. All of that is what you have to do. And that's my single gig focus. Whatever you just asked me.
And you answered it perfectly. Thank you. Frank, Gloss spoke before about the soccer story. The gear you use and operate, either mechanically like the jib or anything on rails or any kind of robots and all that other stuff, is that a big distraction for the talent, do you think? Do they look at it and say, okay, that's really cool, I want to know more about it? Or do they look at it and say, what the hell is this flying in my face?
I would say if for people who haven't been around it,
right?
Like in a studio setting, it's not, if it's a jib or something like that, maybe like someone who's brand new doing something on air might be like a little either confused by it or constantly look at it because that's the only thing that's really moving. But yeah, on like other things that people aren't used to seeing, that whether it's something that's not normally televised, or if so it's just an intimidating situation for them to be in anyway, because you're in either a studio setting or just like a big live environment, and then you have like either a jib or like you said a rail cam or a jitta cam, because that's even more uncommon to see in a regular setting. Like jibs are pretty much, if you know a little bit about television, you'll understand what they are. But then like a jitta cam, which is the jib in the air, which is upside down, hanging and like moving all over the place, that could be, I feel like that could get distracting depending on how close you get to them. I'm usually not anywhere near if I'm doing something robotic for the most part, other than like a jib. I'm pretty much far away from any of the talent, so like it's not that big of a deal to me. Like I wouldn't know, but I will tell you this: I was just doing. I've done like I don't know, probably 15 Yankee games this year, and one of the robos I do for that is like basically in the dugout. Like it's on the corner as soon as you walk up the steps in the dugout. It's right there.
Oh yeah, I know.
Yeah. Well, like for that, I've actually had people like players like stare at it, or Aaron Boone, the manager, he always stands like directly next to it. Like I'll never hit him, but like if I'm walking a player off the field down into the dugout, as I turn, like his face is right here. And he'll like side eye you sometimes. So I don't know if it's distracting or more annoying for them.
Yeah.
But then it's like he can't see me, so I don't care.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious. Gloss, big question for you, because you're a lot closer. It's the same question about distraction. Do you find talent being distracted by you and Steadicam because of, number one, you're close and handsome, or number two, you're close and your gear is really cool and they want to see it?
Yeah.
Or
Well,
you
mainly because of the handsome thing. Mainly the handsome thing. You know, that's no, but really, there's a lot of rehearsals that go on beforehand. If there's a Steadicam move, they always know about it. You know, they're pretty much always prepared. And I've also said this before. I'm working very closely with the talent when I'm on set. So I'll always like I can put the camera away and talk to the talent. I need to be that person, the middleman between the director and the talent, because he can get as much direction as he wants. But I need to play along as well, and they need to have. We need to have that interaction between us, so we know what we're doing. So I don't think it's distracting, unless my utility's making noise, they're moving around. I've had times where my utility behind me has just dropped my cable on the ground, and it made a bang, and I've noticed that it did make a difference. You know, the talent might have. All it takes is a little like off-camera glare to know that you distracted the talent. That's all it takes, you know. So you're like, that's, you know, it's not good to do, because you might pull them out, and you know they lose where they're reading on the prompter, you know. So you got to be cognizant of everything that's going on. But no, I don't think I've ever been a huge distraction in front of somebody, because they're always pretty much prepared and ready to do what you need to do, and they know what your purpose is. You know, they know why.
Lou, let me punctuate what Gaz is saying and what Frank just said, because it goes back to what you asked me. Those moments of distraction, talent, that's another part of what I'm doing, because I'm in their ear, and if I'm watching them watch them, or they're watching, because the jib does fly through, or glass is moving, and if somebody doesn't think they're on camera, like say you have 4 talents on the same set, and one person doesn't think he's on or she's on, they have a tendency to drift. So they'll start watching. They'll start not paying attention to the show. They're going to look over and watch the jib, or they're going to look over and watch Glaz's utility guy. And that's part of my focus is, yo, stop looking. You know, engage in the conversation. Look at talent. Don't watch the crew. That's part of what I have to also be engaged in.
Well, I have a question to follow up on that then, because a lot of people don't know that when you're in their ear, is that distracting for talent?
Yeah.
Like if you're talking to them while they're making a point, because that has to happen, right? Or you're giving them a count, that has to happen.
Yeah.
Like if they're not experienced with that, like that could
Good call. And even the experienced one, if you're, I know Glaz is handsome, but I'm really smart.
Frank's really talented, and we all love each other.
So you have to know when to get into somebody's ear while they're talking. And I'll have executive producers telling me, tell them to go to break. And I'll know that I can't. Because if I say something,
you're gonna kill it.
They're going to stop for a second. Remember the old, nobody's old here except me, the old news guys who used to do this? Hold it. I just heard something. We have a special report coming in. What they're doing is actually listening to their producers. Nobody does that anymore because
they're not telepathically knowing what's happening. Okay, I hear thoughts.
No, they're not. But we've worked with talent, and I'm very good at not dropping the appropriate names on these kinds of shows. I've worked with talent. We've worked, all the three of us have worked on the same show, where we had a short-lived host who literally would repeat what I said in her ear, out her mouth. All right, we're going to go to break in 3 minutes. Stand by, stand by, stand by. We're going to go. She would actually go in the middle of the thing. Okay, we're going to go to break in 3 minutes, so stand by, stand by. I was like, what are you doing?
That's
All right, we're going to roll a package now. No, they don't know what a package is.
Yeah.
She's a producer now.
She's the producer.
All right,
she's a producer on the Psychic News Network, where
Yeah,
tomorrow's
okay.
news
I'm sorry,
is today.
we're killing your clock. I'm sorry, Lou. Go ahead.
I know. Okay, so back to talent and narcissism and ego, which is a big thing on both sides of the camera, being on the talent side of it and also being on the production side of it. And I think it's a good thing and a bad thing. But I want to ask you guys' opinion. Joe, I'm going to start with you. Effectively managing egos up and down the chain of command, being from the executives to the most basic task doer. What's that like, and how important is it to be successful in the business?
Well, I'm going to give you a deep philosophical statement.
Yes.
You have to manage your ego before you can manage somebody else's ego.
Interesting. How
And
so?
that's probably the hardest thing in our business, because we're all good and we all have egos. And anybody tells you they don't, they're full of crap.
Yeah.
Because you're proud of your work and you know you've accomplished. So you have to shut up. Because when you've got idiots telling you what to do, and we end up with a lot of idiots who don't know anything, are giving you direction or telling you to do stuff, you have to learn how to pacify what they're saying and do the right thing anyway. And then you have to go down to, I'm sit right smack in the middle, and then I have crew who are saying, well, that was a stupid thing. Why did I have to do that? Because I had a better shot, or he clipped my own audio, and blah, 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 blah. There's 100 reasons. And I have to usually, okay, listen, you're right. It wasn't your fault, blah, blah, blah. I'll take the hit. And I kind of, try to always stay in the middle of that. Hardest part of my job, absolutely hardest part of my job, because I have a big ego. And for me to have to just back off all the time, it's not. I usually come home, and that's why I have several dogs. I just beat the hell out of them for a while.
Kick the dog.
I don't beat my dogs. I love my dogs to death.
He does. He
Please
loves
don't
them.
send me emails.
He loves them dearly. He loves them
I don't
dearly.
need PETA.
So, Frank, we're going to go to you. We've already established that Scott's good looking, Joe's very smart, and you are very talented.
Just an ugly, stupid, talented guy.
No, that's it. That's it. We have to use only one per guest. So your talent has put you in a position operating at the highest levels at a very young age. You've done a lot of stuff really young, and you're really good at it. Otherwise, you wouldn't have actually done it. What was it like for you working with people who automatically look at you and say, look at this kid. What the hell's he doing on the field?
Yeah, not even just on the field, but I mean, anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, it still happens, because I'm 31, but I don't necessarily look that, especially to most of the people that I'm working with, who are, for the most part, usually at least 15 years older than me, 10 to 15 years older. And I would say the biggest time when all that stuff kind of happens is when I show up on a jib job. And it's where it's I'm like an outside vendor usually, and I might not necessarily know the crew that I'm working with or the director or anything. And a lot of the times, especially early on when I started doing this, I would show up and I would have a utility with me, and maybe they could be older than me or just look older. And they would always go up to the utility and start talking to them first, as if they just assume that they're the operator. And I don't care, because honestly, I've kind of dealt with that my entire life, and it actually fuels me more, I guess, to do better, and to really prove to them, be like, I'm not gonna say it be like, oh my god, I can't believe you didn't think I was the operator or whatever. Like you said, check the ego, and then just let your work kind of speak for you.
So this whole thing might have been an accelerator to even get your talent more refined.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my dad is shaking his
Yeah, I
head
see him, I
because
see him.
I mean, I mean like that stuff always drove me when I was little. Like I pitched when I was played baseball, and I was I was small. I mean, now I'm huge. So, but I was really small, and I would step on the mound and like immediately start hearing chirps from people like pitching, or like when I would go up to bat, people would be like telling stuff like people to move in or whatever, and like like all that stuff. It doesn't like. I don't get mad about it. Like I said, it fuels that. I don't even know what the word is, but motivates. Yeah, I guess it motivates me more.
Motivator.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and yes.
Scott, Gloss, for
Lou.
you, I understand that in the network culture, there's kind of two categories of narcissists, ego people you got to deal with. Frontline creatives, and then you've got that whole corporate overlord stuff. Would you share some insights with us into those personalities from your point of view, and who usually wins those battles?
Yeah, sure. So I could give you an example of being on set when there's a director and then someone like an executive producer comes in and everyone's on their best behavior. You know what I mean? That you have to follow. I think Joe said it. You have to kind of play to who you're talking, who you're dealing with, and kind of react accordingly, if that makes sense to you. You know, like if there's an executive producer in there that has the vision, it's coming from way up top, this is what we got to do, this is how it has to get done, you're yesing them to death. Yes, whatever you need, whatever you want, I got you, whatever you need to do, and then later, you can change a couple things if you need to. When I'm dealing with a director, somebody, you know, who I'm familiar with, who I've worked with before, they know how I work, I know how they work, there's always an ego, like Joe said, but it's, you know, it's in check. You know what I mean? Like you trust each other to get the job done, and it's, you know, that your egos aren't gonna get in the way, I guess. But yeah, there's definitely a separation of, I guess, levels of power, if that makes sense, in my corporate world, that you kind of need to always be aware of. But yeah, you just have to know how to deal with it. You know, it always goes back to being likable and wanting to work with people. You know, if I'm outgoing and I'm a nice person, but at the same time I know what I'm doing and I can get it done in my way, then people will trust you, and whoever they are at whatever level, you'll be okay.
Joe, let me ask you, in order to get the best product done, sometimes you got to give and take, like Gloss is saying. Are you able to overcome truly talented coworkers' narcissism to get this project done? And what techniques would you use?
Yeah, absolutely. It's, and you know, these guys have all been saying the same thing. You have to play to it. You know your people. Lou, you've managed thousands of people in the corporate environment. You learn to who's got the strength, who needs to be stroked, who doesn't need to be, who needs to be challenged. Having been around great leaders, great coaches, I've learned a lot about pushing and pulling. You know, as you have, I've learned a lot from you about managing people. That's all this is. It's managing people. That you have to learn who to push, who to pull, when to defend, when to offend. You know, you just move around. And it's, you know, people get used to your personality. I have a snarky personality. I don't work well with West Coast people.
There's half our audience. Stop.
Well, they won't see it till 3 hours from now.
Oh, okay. Edit.
I'm not saying they're extremely talented. They're wonderful. You know, but if you're going to put me in that position of leadership, we're not going to get along. You know, for the most part. Obviously, you know, everything's different. So I'm going to stop. I got enough trouble just saying I beat my dogs up.
I can build off that, though.
You're on a roll today. Frank, you touched on this earlier about how you handle some of the people when you walk on a set and you look like the young kid who doesn't know anything, and they start talking to the utility who's the older person. Have you found any techniques, or have you done anything that just is kind of like a fun thing that you do as a routine to kind of break that vibe?
You mean to like make them more comfortable with you?
Yeah.
It's kind of, I guess. I mean, it's more just like getting comfortable with anybody, but I guess it's, you have to
Accelerate.
I was going to say escalate. That's probably not the right word. Accelerate that process quickly with like, it's more like talking about nothing that has to do with work. Like if I know that they're, you know, talk about their family, talk about if they have kids, talk about what they do outside of there, and like just kind of get them more comfortable with you. And then when it comes to us, like, you know, then it's just, you're kind of friendly on there. And then when it comes time to be doing stuff, you can, like Oz was saying, you might trust each other a little more. You're just more comfortable with each other.
Yeah.
And it's also one thing. I mean, I learned a lot from my boss and my dad. You kind of got to let your ideas go through them sometime. Like kind of suggest things, but not tell them how to do stuff. Or if they're telling you something that you know is wrong, suggest a different way, and then it's their idea. And then it's just and I don't care as long as we can do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Or just in the way that I know is right.
This
Then
is-
at least if it's their idea, then whatever.
Yeah, this is so funny because it all sounds familiar.
You sound like Joe. You sounded like Joe just now, like so
Totally
much.
sound like- I got to put you in the other box on the camera thing here. Hey, Glaz, do you have a sense of how people view you as a coworker? Like, what do you think they think of you? Is this a guy with the ego? Is this some Jo? I mean, what's the story here? Do you agree with it once you have your perception laid out there?
I've heard of mixed reviews. I think it always goes back to sports. I pull a lot of my life from my experiences through sports through the years. I was always a leader on the field, and it sounded like an egomaniac, but I was always a leader on the field. I was always above average talent on the field.
And the best looking guy on the field.
Absolutely.
Duh, come on.
This
No,
is
but-
not a mixed review. This is narcissism 100%.
Well, I'm only focusing on the positives. No,
Oh, okay.
no, we're not talking about the negatives. No, but yeah. So I've always pulled from being a leader on the field. I was always the captain of my teams. So people kind of, not all seriousness. In all seriousness, I think people kind of looked up to me in a way. Even when I was younger, I always had that presence about me. I think. So I've had coworkers come up to me and ask me hey, how do you do this without getting intimidated? And, how do you do this without, screwing up? Once you're on live television, everything is in front of you and you can't do anything wrong, really. If you do, you got to roll with it. So I've kind of, I guess over the years, I've heard people, I've lent my best advice to younger people. I've had people, let me tell you a story. When my first utility job ever
You got
was with
2 minutes for the
Metrovision.
story.
Okay,
Go.
Metrovision. I was a young utility. This older guy thought I was too young to be on the job. He thought I didn't know what I was doing. He got mad at me for using the wrong knot when I was tying a cable. And he went to the director and went to people above him and said, "This guy doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't like him." That's what he said to them. So it came down to me, and they're like, "What are you doing? Do you know what you're doing?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do. Of course I do." So it's different experiences. It's different people have different opinions on you. You got to take it with a grain of salt and do your best job, I guess is what I have to say.
It's also a ruthless business, and people will be,
Yes.
if they're threatened by you, they might do that. That has nothing to do
Absolutely,
with
absolutely. I was just gonna say that you got to know that it's a shark tank,
Yeah.
and if you have an ally one day, that person wants your gig the next day, and there's
So
nothing.
there's-
That's just the way it is. Lou, I know you're closing this thing real quick, but something came to me that, other than my Harley analogy, people who are musicians who are watching this, it's a band. Glaz uses sports. I'm going to say it's a band. You're in the same environment. When you're playing, you all have to vibe. You all have to get off on each other. And there's obviously a ton of egos there, and you could go down the list. So, musicians have everybody has the exact same environment. And the bigger it gets, the more people that you have to deal with. There you go. Sorry, hand it back to you.
No, that's wonderful. And wrapping up, I was just thinking about what did I learn today over this whole conversation. And I think the biggest point is that no matter what, there is no frontline production safe space to go to if you get triggered by somebody yelling at you for not making the right knot or doing other things.
No,
Excellent.
unless you
Roll
work
with it.
for me.
Oh, you have a safe space. Good.
I look out for my guys.
You do. That's the truth. That's the absolute truth. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will see everybody next week. Check out FerroCity.com. We got a lot of stuff going on. And have a great one, everyone.
Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Lou. See you later.
Peace.
Thank you, Lou.